She has not responded yet, though.
All right. Good.
Okay, sounds
Got
good.
it. Got it. All right. Am I good to go ahead and call this meeting to order?
Hold on, please, until I get us live. I'll let you know.
Okay. It's good to see everybody. Ashley, you have a tail growing out of your head.
I do. I'm on a new computer and I'm trying to figure out. Oh, this is a new cat too. I'm trying to figure out how to get you guys in tile view.
A lot of times that's the upper right where you have options for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we should be ready to go.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Mr. Lanzer, would you please do a roll call and poll for quorum?
Yes. Bear with me 1 minute. Mr. Betcher.
Present.
Ms. Cheney.
Here.
Mr. Knipp.
Here.
Mr. Priedenoff. I believe he's here.
Yeah, I think you're muted. REA, can you hear us? Are you here? We can't hear you.
He's here. I know he's
here.
He just dropped out.
Oh.
okay. Ms. Snyder.
Here.
Proceed with
Mr.
the
Van
roll
Laar.
and we'll.
Here, Arya said he was going to call back. I read his lips. So,
All righty. All members are present.
There we go. Second call for Mr. Priedenoff. Nope. All right. Well, we know he's here. Keep working on it, REA, and you can use the group chat if we don't get it figured out. All right.
Okay.
We good to proceed then? I will ask our solicitor, Mr. Donnellan, to give his report and announcements.
This is our public hearing component relative to the budget. Should we turn that over to Andy to give the budget presentation and then?
Very good. I was following the agenda.
Okay.
All righty. Again, tonight we are reviewing the proposed tax budget for 2021. The proposed tax budget is available for review on the village website. It has also been made public in the clerk's office of the village. I've also attached a memo that I think goes over some significant highlights of the budget that I've made available to new members of council, as well as the public via the website. So I'll just jump right in it. So for consideration this evening, I'm presenting the 2021 tax budget for the Village of Gulf Manor. This budget attempts to accomplish several goals, including estimate carryover balances for each village fund to begin fiscal year 2021, estimate revenues to be received by the village in 2021, and efficiently allocate carryover balances and revenues in order to set appropriation levels for each village fund in order to accomplish village priorities and goals for the fiscal year 2020. What I attempt to do in the memo is to go over each portion of the budget. I divided it into carryover balances or the reserve, revenues, appropriations, additional considerations. And if you go to the last page of the memo, I provided several definitions that I think would be helpful in considering the budget. So I'll begin with carryover balance. So the carryover balance is the reserve. We estimate that to begin fiscal year 2021, the general fund will begin the year with a carryover balance of $581,264. It's the goal of village administration to grow the general fund carryover balance or reserve to the $1 million threshold. This $1 million threshold represents approximately 6 months of resources that should be held in reserve. And we arrive at that level because it's half a year's general fund appropriations. If this goal is achieved, it's in alignment with public administration best practices. So this is the goal. This is the target we're moving to. It's a work in progress, but I think that context is to begin fiscal year 2021. Again, we estimate general fund carryover to be $581,000. This figure is nearly $300,000 more than what the village had in reserve to begin fiscal year 2018. I think that's an accomplishment of this administration and our village council. It's something really to be proud of. Now, this is the however part. The fiscal year 2021 figure represents a 2% decrease in carryover balance when compared to fiscal year 2020. We've covered this, if you followed around in council meetings, numerous times. This decrease is the result of reduction in estimated revenues for this year, fiscal year 2020, result of the detrimental impact of COVID-19. Carryover balances are calculated by combining the previous year's carryover balance and the current year revenue estimates and subtracting current year expenses. So when performed through fiscal year 2021, we are estimating to have a carryover balance to end the year or reserve of $582,000. The two other significant areas I want to bring attention to are the police levy and the street levy. The police levy, we are estimating to have a carryover of $68,943. Or that's to begin the year. We estimate we will end the year, fiscal year 2021, with a balance of $70,214. So it's growing. We forecast that it will grow, not as much as we hope for, but given the economic realities right now, we'll take anything. The other important area is the street levy. So Village of Gulf Manor residents have an ongoing street levy. We forecast that the street levy will begin the year with a carryover balance of $900,000, and it will end the year fiscal 2021 with a carryover balance of $915,000. Any questions in regards to carryover balance? Move along to the revenues. So for 2021, village administration is forecasting general fund revenues to be $1,929,834. The two largest sources of village general fund revenues are real estate property taxes and municipal income taxes. If you look on the budget, it's under real estate tax on the first page and municipal income tax 2 lines below it. We are forecasting real estate property tax receipt in the amount of $633,596. This represents a small but positive increase in real estate property taxes next year. This number is provided to us, village administration, from the Hamilton County Auditor. And we found Historically, they've been extremely accurate in their forecasts, and we are entirely comfortable with using them as the basis of our budget. The second significant revenue source is village municipal income tax. And we are forecasting that village municipal income taxes remain flat in 2021 when compared to fiscal year 2020 at the level of $715,000. This is a conservative estimate. Fiscal year 2019, we brought in $789,000. It was the first full year that the Regional Income Tax Authority was responsible for income tax collection for the village. So again, I would recommend, and Mr. Hertz on board with conservatively forecasting this revenue stream.
So part of the reason that when the recommendations for COVID reductions took place, we didn't have to panic and start slashing budgets by 20% because of our very conservative prediction on expenditures for the year. And as you'll see in our monthly report for June, spending is down again for June. So we're managing it well. No operations have been affected because of the cutbacks that we've made. I just think we are very studiously watching this and making sure that we're making the right moves.
I agree wholeheartedly. If I can bring your attention to the police levy once again, we are forecasting police levy revenues to be $232,890. Of this, $207,000 will be coming to us in the form of real estate property taxes, and $25,000 will be received through the property tax allocation. Similarly, if you look at the street levy, we are forecasting revenues in the amount of $314,652. Of this, $280,537 will be acquired through real estate property taxes, and $34,000 through property tax allocations. Now, the fun part, appropriations. We are estimating general fund appropriations to total $1,928,970 for fiscal year 2021. This is an increase of $33,237 when compared to the current budget for fiscal year 2020. The increase in general fund appropriations are the result of increased personnel expenses across village departments, most significantly in the village's police department, as well as an increase in capital outlay expenditures in the amount of $15,000. I want to reiterate, despite this increase, however, the village's general fund tax budget remains balanced, which means appropriations do not exceed revenues. That is the overarching goal of the administration of Gulf Manor, to ensure that even if we have a little bit of a carryover, we're adding something to the carryover or the reserve each year, with the goal of achieving that $1 million threshold. As for the police levy appropriations are set to be $231,619 for fiscal year 2020. This is a reduction in police levy appropriations in the amount of approximately $23,000 when compared to last year. The primary reason for this is Several of our police vehicles are paid from the police levy, and they pay off at the end of this year. As for the street levy appropriations have been level for the last several years, and we appropriate $300,000 annually. Are there any questions anyone has about anything I've covered so far?
Hi, my name is April Norman. I'm a resident here in the village. I must have connected late because I just came in at the general fund. But I do have questions on the increase in the police personnel, the expenses. Is
Yes.
there a reason for the increase? I mean, first of all, how many people are in that department?
Ron, do you want to, the full-time staff, I believe, is 12.
Full-time is 12. And that includes also administration?
That includes the administration of the police department, which is handled by the chief of police.
Okay, so that's everyone. Are there any part-time?
Several part-time police officers.
That's more than 4, less than 4?
Excuse me, before we go further, can Chief Campbell just verify those numbers for us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's 10 full-time police personnel, including myself, 1 full-time clerk, and 2 part-time officers at the moment.
So the increase is due to more hires or overtime? What's the reason for the increase?
Yeah, the increase, we budget in, we factor in hundreds of hours of overtime across the department. We are also, when we get to the assumptions and considerations, we factor in a 3% increase, up to a 3% increase for staff across the board.
So has there been an increase in crime? What is the reason for the increase in services?
Chief Campbell, do you have the crime statistics?
Yeah, I have to unmute it. No, the reason for the increase is basically just cost of living increase. When officers that have been tenured with us for a long time receive raises. We budget for 53 hours of overtime per pay period for officers to go to court when they're off duty. We always come in under that. We haven't had expenses increase due to crime increase. We've not seen that.
How often are they going to court?
Well, during the COVID shutdown, not very often at all, but typically, depending on officers' arrest, they respond to court several times per case. So it just depends on when those cases come due.
So what's the average salary of the police department there?
I'm the mayor, and I do not know the average salary. I'd have to defer that to either our fiscal officer, Mr. Lanzer, or to the chief of police, Chief Campbell.
So,
I don't have,
Mr.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I'm not sure that this questioning at this point is appropriate because this is a presentation of our budget. If Ms. Norman would like to have that additional information, we can prepare that and give that to her in another format. But we're guessing at things at this point in this presentation. Mr. Donlin, would you concur?
Yeah, the whole purpose is to satisfy the statutory requirement to attest to our tax budget, top to bottom. The actual expenditures are adjusted by way of our budget, which would come in December. So if there's a push to cut back our budget in any way, that would occur in December. Right now, we do forecasting based upon what was past year's expenses, what we anticipate current expenses to be, and match those up against what we anticipate revenues to be. But as Mr. Hurd points out, your questions may be more appropriate addressed to the administration, and then if there is some advocacy to adjust the budget, to be doing that before we get to December timeframe.
Well, the the reason why I'm asking is, as you know, we just, property taxes were just due July 17th, actually, they're coming up. And I pay significantly amount of property tax for the value of the home. I also own property elsewhere, so I do have a comparative. And I'm trying to figure out the level of service as compared to what I'm paying. And if the service is overinflated, it's not adding up, especially considering that we don't have our own school district. It's not personal. I just can't afford to sustain at this level. I'm being taxed out of my home. So it's a major concern. And if the current budget is based off of past expenses, then we can look at past expenses and why they keep increasing. When it's not we should, but you're gonna have to look at that expense. And the reason why I'm asking about that particular department, because of course that's the largest budget, and it's the largest budget in any municipality. I understand. I used to work for the city of Cincinnati, so trust me, I do understand budgets, how they work, how they're funded, and so on and so forth. But I also understand if there's a need to get lean, because you'll end up with an undue stress on the taxpayer. So I'm not sure when would be a more appropriate. I don't want to get to December and then we're having the same discussion, because taxes are due, of course, January, based off of, the previous budget.
Well, let me try and give you a tutorial 101 on taxes. First of all, you need to look at the total property tax bill you're paying and what portion of that comes to Gulf Manor versus the Cincinnati Public Schools versus Little Miami Fire District, Hamilton County levies, and so forth. So we're only one component that may be adjusting.
I am fully aware. I used to work for the Metropolitan Sewer District, and I did sewer assessments. So I worked with Hamilton County with property taxes, and I would put a levy on people's property taxes for the sewer improvement. So I am fully aware on how the taxes are collected and how they're distributed. And I've also went down to the county and I spoke with someone who was surprised. He lived in Anderson Township, and he was actually surprised at our millage rate because I paid more than he did in Anderson Township. So the distribution of our taxes on Cincinnati Public School District is a very poor district. It's only getting 46% of our taxes, as opposed to Wyoming, and they're getting like 51%, 52%. So Cincinnati is not a rich district.
Call to order.
Ms. Norman, if I could suggest a path forward, I'm being reminded that we typically allow public comment of about 3 minutes at a time. We have another full council meeting immediately following this. I was going to suggest as a way forward that you follow up with our village administrator, who is Mr. Hirth. He's you can see him there. You can also get his contact information, I believe, from our website. As our administrator, he can, moving forward, give you not only information on, hopefully answer some of your questions, but he can lead you to our fiscal officer, and he can also make you aware when our finance committee is meeting, if you have continued questions to your point of not wanting to wait until December to ask another question about this. But I'm sure we'd be happy to work with you through the summer to clarify, get answers to your questions. And if you feel that there's action that isn't being taken in the right direction, you can certainly bring that to my attention.
I definitely will. So I will get Mr. Hirth's information, and definitely will be getting in contact. I'll stay on this meeting and listen to what you guys are saying.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Norman.
Thank you.
And Ron, may I suggest that I think you will do this anyway, but as part of this meeting, to make sure you demonstrate the history of the last 3 years of what we've accomplished, what you've accomplished, Andy, in the direction we've been moving for a long time. To look at it just today, you really have to look at what we've done and how far we've come and where we're going. to do that. Thank
I
you.
think Chief Campbell and I need to have this conversation with Ms. Norman, so we'll be happy to do that. Please feel free to reach out and we'll get something scheduled.
Do any other council members have questions concerning the report? I have a couple, and it has to do with, I see the name of my office on a couple of these line items. And so I wanted clarification of what that means, because I know what my salary is. And
So, sure. The mayor and administrative offices is the line items. It's multiple line items, but it's the place in the general fund where council's salary, the mayor's salary, as well as the salaries and expenses of the administration, what we think of as administration, is paid from.
All right. That's what I suspected. It just, the title of it made it sound like, well, this is all, particularly when it says personal services right after mayor. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, so personal services is where the salaries are paid.
Yeah.
And then the other is where everything else is paid from. So it's your employee benefits, your health insurance, your retirement, as well as any operating expenses that are allocated to that department.
So we are working within line items that are prescribed by UAN, which is the state accounting system. So
It's
we have,
UAN as well as the auditor of state. We don't pick the titles or the name. It's just what we have to operate from as a municipality in Ohio.
we have to make it fit.
The other question that I have is, I had directed, as everyone knows, the fiscal officer to be working on making more, I guess, user-friendly kind of graphs and charts and things, so that so people in general can better understand and have a we can have more transparency as far as the budget and, trends over time, so that not only is it more clear to the question that was here earlier about services, but also in terms of when we are making improvements and that is able to be seen graphically. And I appreciate that we got a glossary of terms in the report, but I wanted to ask for an update about the graphs that I've asked for.
Yeah, so I'm actively working on it. My goal is to have the new platform, the new tool ready to go by the end of the second quarter, which would be the August finance meeting. Have it all ready to go there and then. There's a lot going on in the village right now, and I've been working on it, but
I appreciate that. I wanted it to be addressed.
Yes.
So is there any other questions?
It's made a goal to have it by the August council meeting or finance meeting.
I'd like to clarify also, when Mr. Lanzer was talking about increases in spending, it's minor. It's due to just increases when officers reach their increases for having merit reviews. We're not increasing what we're collecting. We're not asking for additional tax revenue. We're just, unfortunately, things have become more expensive.
Yeah. If we would look at general fund appropriations from 2018, even further, the budget just covers 2018 through 2021. You will see a reduction in overall general fund appropriations over this period. And for example, in 2018, actual expenditures from the general fund were $2,045,000. For 2021, we are estimating total expenditures to be in the realm of $1.9 million. Meanwhile, village revenues over the same period have also declined somewhat significantly. So total revenue for the general fund from 2018 was $2.1 million. For next year, fiscal year 2020, we're estimating revenues in the vicinity of $1.9 million.
All right, so for the record, and correct me, Mr. Donellan, if I'm stating this incorrectly, Mr. Donellan is our village solicitor or village attorney. The purpose today is that we're required under statute to, basically publicize that, hey, we're going to talk about our budget. We can continue to talk about our budget moving forward, and we regularly do. It's an item that we have in every council meeting that we touch base on this. Unless there is an objection, I believe we can adjourn this meeting and move on to our full council meeting. Is that correct? Do we need a motion in terms of passing along this report, or?
Yeah, you would make a motion to take this under advisement, then a motion to adjourn. And then during our council meeting, there's a resolution to attest to the Budget Commission that right now we are budgeting our revenues and expenses to be in line. We're not running a deficit. That's the purpose of this mid-year meeting, right, is to show that based upon projections, we are in line for our budget. And I think what's important, and the chief pointed out, we're not projecting any new levies or increased levies in this budget.
All right.
I just had one question, Andy. So it's just something that struck me curiously. Forgive me, I don't have it in front of me. It was the very last page of the document you sent about the money, the COVID money that we got from the state.
Yeah, so that's a section that we're going to discuss in the full council meeting.
Okay, sorry. I'll get it.
Yeah.
It's a simple question, but I'll wait. No problem. Thanks.
Yeah.
We need a motion then to take this under advisement, and then that's a voice vote, and then a motion to adjourn from the public hearing and voice.
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Ms. Snyder, I believe you had the second.
Yes, second.
Then I'll call to a vote. All those in favor? I guess raise your hand.
Aye.
Easier.
Aye.
All right.
And then a motion to adjourn.
Hold on.
Motion.
Hold on. Is there any opposed? Because these can be confusing. All right. So without objection, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. We are adjourned.
So we need a voice vote on that.
Voice vote. All those in favor of adjourning.
Aye.
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 Without objection, I'll take that as unanimous. We are adjourned. And does anybody need a brief break before I call the meeting to order for our regular council meeting?
So, Mr. Mayor, the recording will just continue. You'll just need to identify that it's a new meeting.
Okay. Everyone, this is a new meeting. Welcome to our full council meeting this 13th day of July. And if you would join me, please mute. However, we're going to stand as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Lanzer, I believe we need to have a roll call and poll for quorum.
Mr. Betcher,
Here.
Ms. Cheney,
Here.
Mr. Knipp,
Here.
Mr. Priedenoff,
Present.
Ms. Snyder,
Here.
Mr. Van Harn.
Present.
All members are present.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I did miss a special guest for this evening from Hamilton County Recycling. We have Christy O'Connor who would like to speak to council.
I've been notified of that. Welcome, Ms. O'Connor, and welcome all of our guests. Ms. O'Connor, I understand that you are registered to speak. We ask that you keep that to 3 minutes, and I understand that's concerning Hamilton County recycling.
Hello, everyone. Yes, thank you, Mayor. I am here to talk about the outreach plan I prepared for increasing recycling in the village of Gulf Manor. So I'm going to do this quickly, but I'm going to share my screen really quick. Oh, no, never mind, I won't. Okay. So I ran a survey through Gulf Manor's website, and it was an online survey, and to identify the challenges of recycling, and 52% said there was an issue with collection, and 20% said it was an issue with information. So I've prepared strategies to combat these issues. The first strategy is direct communication with residents. So we'll be sending out a direct mailer with bin stickers to place on top of recycling bins. I've prepared a recycling webinar specifically for Gulf Manor on July 28th at 7 p.m. And the last piece of that direct communication will be sponsoring a barbecue, which I've spoken with Roger Van Horn about, which I understand the council will be deciding about tonight. The other piece is improving efficiency of leaf collection. So Andy Lancer and I toured Amberley Village's composting facility 2 weeks ago, and we have decided that we're going to try and move forward with a trial run of a partnership for leaf collection this season with Amberley Village. The third piece of the strategy is targeting schools. So we would like to run education programs in local schools, including Pleasant Ridge Montessori, Nativity, Cincinnati Hebrew Day School, and Woodward High School. And the final strategy will be assisting in contract renegotiation. Rumpke's contract is set to expire September 21, 2021, and we would like to assist the village in any way possible next year during renegotiation.
Thank you. That actually is very exciting. Can you, before I turn it over to questions from that other council members may have, I'm curious about the webinar. Can you give me a kind of a more of a sense of what that is targeted to look like? And in terms of the negotiations as well, I'm not privy to that. It may be our administrator may be able to speak briefly to what those typically look like, but I'm very curious about any leverage in any negotiations that we may acquire.
Sure. So the webinar is going to be, I'm running it with Ann Gray, an outreach specialist from Rumpke. So it's essentially just going to be a Recycling 101 webinar, planning to promote it through Facebook groups involving Gulf Manor, as well as I'm hoping to get it on Gulf Manor's website. And that's just to get at the information piece that people identified as a challenge to recycling in Gulf Manor. So it'll be about an hour long and just informational about how everything works and what is recyclable, what happens to our recyclables in Hamilton County. So I will post the link in the chat for registration soon. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat from Maxine. Okay, and then the other part about renegotiation of the contract. So I think the current contract was written in 2013. And since many people identified in the survey as collection schedule was a big issue, many people identified the fact that their recyclable bins fill up too quickly as an issue. So I want to urge for Rumpke supplying 95-gallon bins instead of the 65-gallon bins, which Gulf Manor currently has.
I like that. Go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, to your question about the negotiation of the Rumpke contract, I would foresee us starting in late December, first part of the first quarter next year, starting to take a look at community feedback. And the survey will be very helpful for us. Also getting input from council members in terms of what they've collected for feedback on our recycling and on our solid waste disposal services. One of the areas that I want to look at, which I've talked with our corporate rep for a couple of years, is I believe we need to have a yard waste recycling component. We do an awful lot of brush pickup and grass pickup that's basically going into the regular dump, as opposed to going to composting piles. That needs to be addressed, along with, as Ms. O'Connor stated, the issue of there being an inadequate amount of space for recycling, for diversion. I find that in my own household, 2 weeks in one can hardly makes it anymore. What I would see then after we get that input, second quarter, we will prepare an RFP to send out to whoever's out there. Obviously, Rumpke would be someone who would bid. Hopefully we would have others. I'm not sure who's out there anymore other than Waste Management. And then I would see us actually doing negotiation probably at the end of the second quarter, first of the third quarter, ready to implement a new contract at the end of September. And I believe, Mr. Donald, that's the process. I don't believe you were here in 2013, but that's the process that was put together with Assistant Solicitor Butler.
That's correct. We usually go out and then solicit responses. There's Rumpke. There is a CSI, I think is the other, that will give us a bid and then make a determination from there where we will take the service for a period of time.
And I would also just like to acknowledge Ms. Robinson. If it weren't for concerns over COVID, we would be doing a lot of this work on the ground, but it's just, we aren't able to do in-person work with social distancing right now. So unfortunately, it is flawed and it's not perfect, but it's the best we're able to do right now.
Yeah. And thank you, Mr. Lanzer, for putting your email out there to discuss strategies. Appreciate that and encourage you, Ms. Robinson, to follow up.
There's a few small details because I worked with Christy on this quite a bit. And there's a couple things that she did one heck of a job on putting a lot of things together.
I agree with it.
She kind of glossed over a couple things, I think, because she thought 3 minutes, but I really want to make sure the stickers she mentioned are an answer to people's complaint that it's confusing of when the pickups are. So the sticker is actually going to be a calendar sticker where you can put right in your bin. So when you go out there, you can open the bin, look at it. Oh, this is recycle week or not. It was one idea that she came up with to say this may be something we can do, and it's part of the program now to try that and see if we can keep people informed. Secondly, the leaf collection, there's a big part of that, and Andy could address that. But the fact that if we can partner with Amberley, shorten our drive time by hours when these guys are doing it, that's a huge efficiency savings for us. And Christy really called that out. And that's what that's about. It's not just, hey, we're partnering with them. There's a big reason why she did that. And it's important that she worked out with Andy. And the last thing is, I see the comments about the footwork. There's 2 mailers that are direct. One of the things that was Christy really called out was because we actually got a 98% of the people that responded to the survey were already recycling. That sounds great, but she realized that these are the people that are actively doing it, that are responding. They're kind of that nature. And that's why we decided to do direct mail, so we can reach all the residents. And she planned 2 mailers to do that, at least. So she just kind of said that, but there's some really good stuff behind this and those decisions. She just kind of explained them. I'm trying to help you out, Christy, because I thought it was really good. And I wanted you to
Thank you. I
that.
appreciate it.
Wow.
I was definitely glossing over it quickly. due to the
Well,
time constraint.
Allow me to thank you for your work, Ms. Robinson, and for the amount of detail and attention that you gave to it. I really appreciate it. Thank you for visiting us this evening and giving us the report. And I apologize for crunching it into 3 minutes. And I hope that everyone has had an opportunity to ask questions without objection.
Mayor Densmore, I have one last comment, if I could, please. Part of Christie's plan is an event, a barbecue, and her and Roger planned out, I think, a marvelous event. It's my understanding, and Roger, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but Go Golf Manor is willing to co-sponsor this event along with Hamilton County Solid Waste. Is that given I just want to make sure before, given the environment we're in, that's the direction we want to go. I think as long as public health barriers or regulations are protected, I don't see a reason not to, but I wanted to give council the opportunity to weigh in on that.
Mr. Van Horn?
Yeah, sorry. Oh, I'm not muted. Okay. Yeah, it's been through a few different hoops, and basically when we were working through the plan, we thought of having an event, and they approved it, the idea of a barbecue. We could do that through the village. They're going to sponsor with $500, or they said they would be glad to do it through Go Golf Manor. It's really a village decision on how to handle that. Now, we've done a lot of work with the groups and people talking about it, that it would be just strictly a carry-out event. It would be billed that way. It's not going to be a seated event or anything like that. No tables, no anything. People want to bring chairs or blankets and distance and spread out in the park, they can, but it's going to be, basically a carry-out event. Simply for Hamilton County Recycling, we agreed that we would put their logo and make sure they're known as the sponsor of it, and do whatever we can to promote the recycling part of it and what this means. Christy and I talked about, assuming the COVID restrictions still remain, that we may just have an unmanned table that maybe shows people what you can and can't recycle or something. We don't have it all, but some kind of idea. And they would loan us a banner for them. And just something to promote out there. It would probably be like the 3rd week of August, I think we're looking at. And it's a way to just promote this and the idea of it, and give people something to look forward to. And there actually may be a raffle attached to it too. We're still working on a couple of details for that. If I could think of something great to raffle off about recycling, that might be fitting. So,
Thank you for all your work on this, Mr. Van Horn, and everyone. Is there any other questions, or actually, when will we get the next update on this? Can I expect at our next council meeting to have a report on this, Mr. Van Horn, on developments?
Report on the barbecue, or
the planning that's going on with regard to these strategies and everything. What's the target? Did I miss that? The target date for these strategies?
So the next council meeting is August 17th. Mr. Van Horn and I had talked about, I believe, August 15th and 22nd as target dates. So the 15th would be prior to the council meeting, the 22nd would be after.
Okay.
Yeah, the barbecue guy, so to speak, that I've been talking to, he's well known in the area, and I think would help the event. And he usually does it at Nativity. And at this point, he's told me the 2 weekends he's available are the 22nd and the 29th, whatever, those 2 last weekends. So that's kind of what I've been working with. So,
And Mayor Densmore, I want to reiterate that a lot of these initiatives are going on as we speak. So we are set to start negotiating a possible leaf partnership with Amberley Village, and that's imminent. We've also scheduled for a tire drop-off event that will be concluding on the week of August 23rd. So we will be.
When am I getting my sticker?
It's a good question.
It should be soon, August.
Okay.
So we will be providing regular updates at every council meeting.
All right, very good.
So one of the things, Mr. O'Connor, that you could do too, is we have a fairly decent turnout on election day. We could put you in a benign spot, out of the way of traffic of people coming to the election for you to pass out stuff. That might be helpful also after people vote.
Yeah, sure. That's a good opportunity. Thank you.
And Christy, did you mention the idea or the part of your plan where you were gonna try to have something attached to all the rental property information or something? I forget how we detailed that. If you said it, then I missed it. Sorry.
So Mr. Lancer and I had spoken about that, and it seems there's some reluctance to give out information of property owners, understandably. So trying to figure out a way around that where we could still be inclusive of rental properties and get information without breaching privacy.
Yeah, it's something.
My understanding was we're going to be having paper from us or through us delivered to new rental people anyway, and it might just be a part, just informational piece on it. It doesn't actually ask for anything. It's just delivering the recycle. At least that's what I remember that we talked about. It wasn't anything about finding out people's information. So.
Yeah, so it was just we're trying to find rental properties, but kind of got some pushback on that information.
I think the easiest way to do it is to acquire a mailing list, a general mailing list for everyone in the village, and to send these out just through the generalized mailing list. Yeah, there's some privacy concerns and certain realities of working with property owners and landlord tenant issues, barriers that are fairly difficult to overcome. So
A bulk rate mailer with just current resident is
Right.
probably quickest and easiest.
Right.
I've, as an aside on that topic, I've often wondered about just using the auditor's website. I know that that's hours and hours and hours and probably months of time going address by address to identify what's a rental property and what's not. Is it identified on the auditor's website or no?
Not necessarily. Sometimes it is if there's a rental certificate attached to it, but not all landlords fill out the rental certificate.
All right.
So we can identify property owners, but not always a tenant or a current tenant.
So
Well,
Mr. Donnelly,
one thing though is that the property owner, it actually shows their address. So if the address is outside the village, then pretty strong bet that that's a rental.
Mr. Donnelly, don't we have a right as a municipality to communicate through occupant like we would have with a newsletter? If we have the addresses, we can communicate as we see necessary, correct?
Correct. The difficulty, and I think Andy was touching on it, if we get a report from a landlord to our tax department identifying tenants, we're not allowed to share that information because it's confidential information when it comes through the tax department. So we have to look at some way of, we talked before COVID about doing a registration program and perhaps utilizing that as the foundation going forward to identify specific tenants to be able to address mailers to them.
We can work it out.
Yeah, I think so too. We will.
Okay, all good stuff. I don't see anybody else registered to speak. So without objection, I will go into my mayor's report.
Thanks, Chris.
Approve
Thank
the
you,
agenda.
Find my mayor's report.
Mr. Mayor, do we need to approve the agenda first?
Yes, we do. I apologize. Let me look at this. It was not on my agenda. Please, let's have that on my agenda so I'm not constantly kind of bulldozing over that. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the agenda so that we can have a vote on it? I'm going to take that as a yes. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Without objection, I'll take that as unanimous. And got a couple items on my report. The first part of this is a COVID update. At Governor DeWine's request, plainclothes National Guard members have been assisting in the administration of free testing sites throughout the county. It takes approximately 24 hours to get test results this way. A full list of these sites can be found on the County Health Department website. It appears the closest two sites for our residents is 1740 Langdon Farm. That is, if you're familiar with the Community Action Agency, the side of the building that is facing Reading Road. If you pull into their parking lot, which can be very confusing because they have a lot of construction that's going on, if you can work your way through that parking lot to get on the side of the building that's facing Reading, you will see the healthcare office there where they're providing this free testing. The other location is at 7005 Reading Road, which I believe is right there in the school across the street from there. So those are the two locations that appear to be closest for our residents. There are phone numbers attached to each of those places as well if people want to call ahead of time. If you have a pen available, I'll give you a minute for that. And it will also be included in my report, which I'll have attached to the minutes. That first location on the other side of the Community Action Agency, their phone number is 513-569-1840. And the location at 7005 Reading Road is 513-363-9300. Concerning the statistics of all this, the Hamilton County Health Department reports that they have data that suggests the virus is being spread most by people between the ages of 20 and 30. This is attributed to the failure of getting the message to this group about the real importance of social distancing and mask wearing. For those that think the spike upward in the numbers we're seeing is simply due to an increase in the tests being done, and that it poses no substantial risk to our residents. Please hear me clarify that yes, the total number of people discovered to have COVID-19 is increasing due to increased testing as expected, but that isn't what your community health officials and your local leaders are concerned about. It's the increased numbers of hospitalizations, which are also spiking upward, and which capacity-wise does potentially threaten any of our residents that may need hospitalization. So we're trying to decrease the number of hospitalizations, which means we're trying to decrease spread between any two parties. And on that note, my next item here is the mask mandate for Hamilton County and the Village of Gulf Manor. As you know, Governor DeWine, through the Ohio Department of Health, declared a mask mandate last week for any county that has reached a code red or higher level of infection rate. He'll potentially be issuing stay-home orders if any county reaches the purple code level. Under the authority I have as mayor of Gulf Manor from this council's resolution 2020-4, I can direct our police department to enforce this mandate and have any resulting citations directed to our mayor's court. I've decided to do this. I've consulted with our police chief, our attorney, and the village administrator to work out the details. The text of my order I have here, and I'll be delivering that to our police chief. I'll also read it here. I'm going to give a kind of a summary that following my order, wearing a mask in Gulf Manor is required in public if you cannot social distance. So for instance, in our parks, at bus stops, and yard sales, our officers have the ability to write a $25 ticket for violations and have been instructed to do so in situations where a warning has proved ineffective. If anyone has a complaint about a restaurant or other business in Gulf Manor not following the rules of the mandate, we'll direct you to call the Hamilton County Health Department complaint line, which is 513-946-7800. If you're unable to use one of our bus stops or parks or a yard sale because folks aren't wearing masks, and you've said something and it's still a problem, we'd ask you to call our officer on duty, which is 513-615-3001 or 3002. People need to be able to use the parks and the bus safely. To support them in doing so, they'll have the full support of Gulf Manor public safety officers. I'll go ahead and read that order to make it so. Excuse me. Mr. Donald, I sent you 2 versions of this, and I got a response on the first one, but not the second one. Did you catch that? And do you have a preference?
No, I did not see the second one come through. Whatever your preference is, it's your directive. So if you're more comfortable with number 2 version.
Yeah, it's just making sure that the wording is, all up to standard. So under the authority granted me, the mayor of the Village of Gulf Manor, under resolution number 2020-4, I'm hereby reinforcing the state of emergency declaration specific to the Village of Gulf Manor while we remain in the red alert and potentially purple alert categories to control the pandemic virus. In keeping with the state directive on mandating that masks be worn in any public building and in such public spaces where appropriate social distancing cannot be maintained. While this declaration is in place, persons violating this order can be cited under our resolution number 2020-4, with the first offense being charged as a minor misdemeanor with a maximum fine of $25. This will be the fine whether the citation is paid out in advance of court or the person is cited to mayor's court and convicted. In addition, a person shall be liable for court costs if prosecuted through the mayor's court. For purposes of dispatch, calls for assistance concerning violations of the mandate by restaurants or other businesses in Gulf Manor violating the mandate should be directed to the Hamilton County Health Department's COVID-19 complaint line, which is 513-946-7800. For the purposes of dispatch for calls of assistance concerning violations of the mandate in public spaces, such as our parks, bus stops, or yard sales, those should be directed to our officer on duty, 513-615-3001 or 513-615-3002. This declaration will continue until either terminated by me as mayor or we achieve safe levels, lowering our alert to the orange or yellow category as determined by the state of Ohio. This order does not supersede any separate order from the Hamilton County Department of Health, nor does it supersede the Hamilton County Department of Health's authority to issue a separate violation as permitted under the law.
Does this include walking or jogging? I see a question from Ms. Robinson.
It is my specific intent that it does not if you are able to social distance. So the idea under the state mandate is, give someone a 6-foot berth if you're approaching them on the sidewalk. I'm a runner myself and wanted to make sure that this was worded in such a way that the mayor of Gulf Manor doesn't get cited. All right.
Question, do we have specific numbers on infection rates inside of Gulf Manor?
We have it by, publicly, we have it by zip code. Part of how this thing, how emergency management has handled this and the way the hospitals, or I should say the way Hamilton County Board of Health has been handling this, is they recognize the importance, thankfully, of keeping our first responders COVID-free. So they do give them an update, and I get that update as well, as to which households in Gulf Manor has it. But that is considered, HIPAA private information, so we don't make that public. But by zip code, we do have numbers that are public.
Do we have numbers for Gulf Manor specifically?
Not publicly.
So as council, are we entitled privately and confidentially to know those numbers?
I would, I actually don't know that myself. It seems reasonable. I, would urge the confidentiality about that, and I'd also defer to our attorney, Mr. Donellan, to speak to that.
Yeah, if they're giving out the numbers publicly from Hamilton County, we can relay those numbers. If I understand what we're saying though, is they don't break them down very specific to Gulf Manor. They give it by zip code because the
No,
more.
no, he said they actually give it to him to help protect first responders.
Can I,
They-
can I
They
they
give
know
it
the address.
directly to the first responders who have shared it with me.
We'd have to go back to Hamilton County. It's their statistic on whether or not that's protected health information, or whether it's restricted to that specific purpose. If somebody made a request to us under 149.43, again, we'd have to look at whether there's enough detail in there to be protected health information.
I really, all I'm interested in is the aggregate. You need a mask? I'm just looking for the aggregate number that's inside the community, because that's.
Right. Chief Campbell, can you speak to this, or would you
Yeah.
defer?
Yeah, if I can jump in and maybe get some guidance from Mr. Donaldson. We do receive, myself and the fire district receives a list and updates of when people are on the quarantine list or taken off. It lists addresses and names, so I don't think we should share that.
I don't need that. I just want to know, is it 10
Yeah.
people, or is it,
It's
500?
less than 25.
Okay.
It changes. We'll get an addition of a name and we'll have 2 that come off, and vice versa.
Okay. That's all I was curious about.
With that information being directed specifically to public safety, that would be protected health information that we could not publicize. But again, the general number would be fine. Just like
Yeah.
they're saying, there's so many in your zip code.
I'm good with that. I'm just curious.
And I will, without objection, to have further conversation about this, I will begin including that in my mayor's report moving forward, if that's what you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Chris, or Chief Campbell, where do those numbers come from again? I'm just curious. Are they coming from the county, or just so I know where the source is for that?
The Board of Health updates the comm center so that they can advise us or the fire department when we're dispatched to a location that may potentially be risk.
All right. I'm going to continue with my report. We have, just to give everyone a heads up who might not have a copy of the agenda, we are there's going to be a request for an executive session here this evening. So we've got quite a bit on the agenda. And during that executive session, what that means is that only the council members and the administration, members of the administration will be allowed. So we'll kind of go dark for a little while, and then we'll be back. Proceeding with the rest of my report, nonprofit United Resource Connection will be distributing masks and disinfectant wipes to elderly in Gulf Manor. Some of you know that before I became mayor, Gulf Manor began a partnership with this nonprofit to provide social service resources to any of our residents in need. I'll say for full disclosure that I'm board president and CEO of that nonprofit. As part of that ongoing partnership, United Resource Connection will check on elderly in our village and make sure they have mask and disinfectant wipes if those residents want and need them. If you know of any residents in Gulf Manor that would benefit from this service, please send their name and address to, if you have a pen available, support@unitedresourceconnection.org. The masks are being provided free of cost by the county to small nonprofits. So if you have a nonprofit or know of one that could use masks, the number for them to call is 513-263-8200. And my final item here is on the importance of the 2020 census participation. As you may know, due to COVID, we had to cancel many of the plans we had for promoting the 2020 census. It's still important that we get the word out to people about why it's so necessary to participate in the census. We get money for roads, bus stops, housing improvement programs, programs to assist families and children, and other local community services are all based on the population numbers which are gathered during the census. So to further promote community awareness about this, I'm declaring, some of you have a heads up about this, I'm declaring a census sign competition whereby I'll offer prizes to whoever displays the most creative homemade signs conveying the importance participating in the census. I wanted to take a couple pictures of what has already been done, but wasn't able to get my act together in time for that. So basically what I'm asking is residents to display your sign in your yard. And we have some sign stands and materials available or that will be made available at the municipal building to help you get started. And you can view continuing details about this on our website. I'll be posting a press release about it. I'm asking all the members of the village council to drive through the neighborhoods over the next couple months to judge the competition. As for the prize ideas, I've been asking for input on this, and they include, the different ideas include locally sourced cheesecake, flower baskets, a certificate for one lawn mowing, and multiple suggestions about gift cards, some local, some not. So Demetrio's is a local restaurant here. That was a very popular suggestion. We have a local UDF here as well. I'm not clear on whether they have gift cards at UDF.
You had me at cheesecake.
All right. As well as suggestions for gift certificates for pizza or for the box store Target. I've had several council members say that they would contribute money towards the gift card. So that's currently a popular option as a prize. And as we move forward with this, I'll make sure that the what we decided on as far as a prize will be made public to everyone. Thank you for all those who submitted your ideas. And with that, I will end my report unless there's any other questions.
Stefan, will there be a like a list of or addresses that when they pick up a sign they can give? Because I'd hate to drive through the neighborhood and then miss one.
Right.
And so just curiosity.
Yeah, well, I will ask our administrator, Mr. Hirth, to certainly, if we have people coming by the municipal building or calling, requesting assistance with having some of these signs and sign stands, that we get their addresses. And as I said, it's not a specific date that's been set yet. So I know that we all occasionally are driving through the village. So it's just, you all are judges. What that means is you can participate, but you can't vote for yourself. Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, how are you promoting this for people to ask for materials? Do we know that yet?
Right. So I've written up a statement about this, which we'll put on our website, and it will go out to everyone that's subscribed. I'm going to ask the members here that are active on Go Golf Manor to push it out that way, push it out on Facebook, the various social media stuff.
So could we ask those folks and put in that material to make their requests at info@golfmanoroh.gov?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And also to have them include their address when they're making the request. All right, any other questions? If not, I'll ask for Mr. Hirth, the administrator's report.
Great, thank you. So social distancing, temperature checks, and sanitizing protocols continue for the municipal building. We still are conducting Mayor's Court with the tent. The tent actually is a permanent fixture for us now. We are actually purchasing that tent from the circus. It was a new tent when we got it, and we were able to get it at a discounted rate. Looks like it's going to be there for a couple of months, so we'll have that to use going forward for events over in the park. The final stage of the Westover Road project is in progress. It was somewhat delayed last week by conditions of the substrate on the hill. So as we had suspected, there was water flowing underneath the crust of Stover. If you've ever been up there as you're going from Bremont to Rosedale. So there's quite a bit of work that they're doing to eliminate whatever is leaking there and then also to fill that back in. We are expecting now the target end of the project to be the first week in August. Depending on protocols in place, we would like to conduct a street dedication with the mayor and the council members and invite the residents of Stover, probably at the intersection of Greenmont and Stover, to do some type of ribbon cutting, maybe do something that we haven't done before. And again, the protocols for COVID are going to dictate how we do and what we do. So that's in our mind. We may end up doing it next spring. The speed hump project that I've talked about the last couple of council meetings is almost ready to send a bid. I worked with Chief Campbell on identifying where we are going to deploy speed humps. There will probably be 14 permanent humps with a completion date prior to Thanksgiving. The only street where we're not able to put speed humps are on the concrete streets. So I see Mr. Marks is here. Unfortunately, Bremont is not going to be a candidate, along with Mr. Van Harn. However, we are researching putting smaller speeding signs in the trouble areas along Bremont. So there will be something that goes in place prior to Thanksgiving on that. An important thing that the administration has started working on is a new project related to evaluating the cost and effectiveness of our current fire service provided by the Little Miami District. We are calling this effort Project 47. So when you hear us discussing Project 47, it's about the effectiveness of the fire department and what our future with those kinds of services look like going forward. Along with that, we are launching a campaign called We Support Station 47. You see that? These are buttons. I got lots of them, spread them liberally around. I'm wearing mine, as is the mayor. Cool stuff. This is done to let our firefighters know that we support them, that we are proud and very supportive of Station 47 and the people who work there. I'll have more on that initiative, hopefully at the next council meeting. We will be reporting to council our results of this analysis over the next few months. So stay tuned. We'll have some good stuff that comes out of that. Just a quick update on Rita. Tax filing day is due Wednesday, July. Make sure you file. As always, through Rita, our residents can still file online. They can file by paper with the mail-in completed forms, which are available in the lobby of the police department since the administration door is locked. And then if residents wish, they can send copies of their supporting documents and Rita will calculate their taxes. At this point, the important note is that it has to be postmarked by July 15th for it not to be late. Any questions on that? Okay.
Can I get that shirt to go with that button?
Sure. That's my evening vacation look.
That shirt should go in with the prize for the sign in the yard.
Yeah.
It's festive.
The village property and liability insurance has been renewed for the year. The new contract starts on July 29th.
Mr. Hirth, I'm sorry, I was muted and I was trying to ask a question about the about Rita. If folks just click the link, they are able to do their enter their numbers, or do they need to upload stuff?
No, they can actually fill out an online form, but they have to
Right.
create an account.
Okay, just wanted clarification on that. Thank you.
Sure. So as I was saying, the village property and liability insurance has been renewed for the next year. The new contract starts at the end of July. We have added, for everyone's protection, what is called malicious act insurance, which will cover our employees, our elected officials, and our volunteers with additional coverage up to $1 million per incident to ensure complete coverage should anyone be involved in an incident where there is a threat of terror. So if there would be some kind of issue that, and I'm Chief Campbell, I'm not going to speculate here, but this is in addition to the bonding that we do for our employees, which is required by charter. It's also in addition to any other insurance coverage for employees that is currently included in the contract. So this was relatively cheap insurance. It was under $300 to purchase this, and it covers up to $1 million for everybody. Seemed like a no-brainer, especially with what's going on in our society right now. And we just don't want surprises. So if we would be in this building, in the municipal building where I'm at, and there would be some kind of attack, this would be additional insurance that everyone would have. Finally, things that we've been working on for the last 2 weeks and actually for the last month and a half would include what Mr. Lanzer is going to talk about next, a number of financial issues, including passing our 2021 tax budget if there are any additional questions, appropriation of the COVID-19 funds, and information that will be related to revenues that are projected to come in at this point. We got some good news today. So Mr. Lanzer or Mr. Mayor, I'm completed with my report, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hirth. And are there any questions? Mr. Hirth? All right, so I will ask Mr. Lanzer for our fiscal report.
Actually, sorry, one question. Where do we get those cool buttons?
I have many, many, many here in my office.
I'll be by.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. All right, Mr. Lanzer.
Yes, picking up where we left off in the special meeting about the tax budget, again, for review or for consideration this evening, we are presenting the 2021 tax budget. We are estimating the general fund to end the year, fiscal year 2021, with a carryover balance or reserve in the amount of $582,000. We are forecasting revenues in the amount of $1.9 million. We are forecasting appropriations in the amount of $1.9 million. One thing that I didn't get to touch on were some additional considerations that I think all of you should be aware of. First, I want to state that the fiscal year 2021 tax budget was based on the following assumptions. The first being that for fiscal year 2020, we will not be required to tap further into the village's carryover or reserve. The impact of COVID-19 has had a detrimental impact on village resources. Nearly every entity in Ohio has had to make adjustments to revenue forecasts and appropriations, including Gulf Manor. In doing so, this has required a minimum level of deficit spending from the carryover. Village administration, I want to reiterate, village administration continues to monitor village resources and regularly check in with our partner agency who assist us in forecasting. Both fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21 budgets are based upon forecasts and feedback from our partners, such as the Regional Income Tax Authority. Village administration is prepared to make further adjustments as necessary. The second assumption was that staffing levels for the village will remain constant. The third assumption is that core services and service levels provided by the village will remain constant. The fourth assumption is that eligible staff will be eligible for up to a 3% pay increase. And the fifth assumption is that health insurance will increase in the amount of 10%. So that is my brief overview of the tax budget. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have once again. All right, if there's no questions, I'll move along to the July reappropriations. So as many of you are aware, the village has received $46,000 from the state of Ohio, which is to be spent on the village's COVID-19 response needs. The funds can be spent both on personnel, for example, to compensate employees who may be placed under quarantine, who require sick time, or to cover additional overtime stemming from COVID-19 response, among many other areas. It can also be used to cover supplies and equipment needed by the village to ensure the health and safety of village employees and the community. Currently, village administration desires to allocate $16,887 for personnel compensation and the remaining balance of $30,000 for employee benefits, supplies, and equipment. We currently estimate that we spent approximately $7,000 in qualifying purchases and employee expenses to date. In addition, the village has created an expense tracking tool to ensure that accurate recording of qualifying expenses occurs. The entirety of the $46,000 is to be placed into the restricted coronavirus relief fund, fund number 2151. And at the end of fiscal year 20, the village is required to reimburse to the state any remaining balance of this fund. So we hope that council approves these reappropriations this evening in order for us to get our budget documentation to the county auditor so we can actually start using these funds. Are there any questions anyone has? I know Roger, I thought, had one.
Yeah, just when I read that last page about the COVID money, it just jumped out at me that it was it 58,000 some odd dollars, and then the 18,000 some odd dollars was just the right cut with 30,000 left. I was curious how you came up with that. That just jumped out at me. That it seems a little arbitrary, which is fine. I just want to try to figure out how you came up with that cut, so to speak.
What we've looked at was current utilization of qualifying expenses. The vast majority, approximately 2/3 of the village expenses in this area, has been for supplies. And it makes sense when you think about it. So cleaning supplies, this has been going on since January. So we've had to spend a lot of money, a lot of resource, village appropriations that were to be appropriated elsewhere on cleaning supplies. We are responsible for cleaning the building inside and out, cleaning the playset equipment at the park. We've restarted Mayor's Court. That requires a thorough cleaning of that space and facility. So the number is somewhat arbitrary, but it's also based somewhat in where we're seeing these expenses right now. Now, council has the authority and administration will recommend changing those numbers as we see fit. Or if there's another purpose that council or the mayor would like to see that money be spent on, we can do that. We had to arrive at a number tonight in order to get it to the county tomorrow so we can start using those funds. Otherwise, another month will go by that we are unable to use these COVID funds. And the way I look at it is these are resources that the residents of Gulf Manor are already paying. They're already paying it to the state and they're already paying it to the federal government. The state's giving us an opportunity to get some of our tax money back. And I think it would be wise to use it as efficiently and as effectively as possible.
Yeah, Annie, I assure you I wasn't challenging the use of it or whatever. Just that cut, it just jumped out at me like, how'd you get that with a $30,000? No big deal, just worth it.
Yep, I understand. Any other questions regarding COVID? All righty.
There's one comment that I would make, that this does not include the additional county money. Is that correct?
That's right. This is state money.
Right. So there's an expectation of further money coming directly from the U.S. Treasury through the county to local municipalities. The hope is that there's even more flexibility than what the state has offered, but it's being debated right now, and that's part of what's holding it up.
And again, even in that is resources that the residents of Gulf Manor are already paying. We are given an opportunity as a village to get some of that back and to apply it locally. So it's very much helpful given the economic environment that we're in right now.
And one more thing, and this I think goes to the tax budget piece, the printout that we got. I mentioned this earlier when we were at the public hearing for it, but I don't think that I was clear. There's a number of places where I believe it's the titles of the category are intended to say personnel, but they say personal. And I would ask that that be amended before we approve it.
Those titles are it would seem that way. Those are the titles that the auditor of state wants us to use. I can provide
Can we double check that? Because I don't want anything that says like several $100,000 for mayor personal spending, right? Mayor or administration personal spending. I don't want that. I would not recommend that the council approves something that's titled that way. I'm presuming it's a spell check error that they didn't catch. I believe that should say personnel, mayor and administration personnel. But I could be wrong.
That language has been perpetuated on every tax budget that I've seen since 2013. That form comes directly from the county auditor's office.
All right. Can one of you reach out to the county's auditor office and have them direct a message to me that is what it's supposed to say with respect to not being personnel, but personal? Because I think that's a problem if it's.
So Mr. Donovan, if we don't approve this evening, we will have to convene another special council.
Well, yeah, what I would recommend is you approve the budget because it's the budget that you want, numbers that you want. But in our submission to the Budget Commission, ask they please clarify that this should be personnel and not personal, so that going forward they have the correct template that they want all of us to use.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Donovan. Mr. Betcher, you're muted.
You need a motion to approve the tax budget, correct?
Well, we're going to do that during our legislative portion of it.
Perfect.
I still have a monthly financial update before we get there. I would just like to direct, I don't want to beat a dead horse on this, but if you go to the UAN, the monthly financial packet, and you go to appropriations, you will see the exact same language in UAN. And that's the website, the accounting tool that we are required to use by the auditor of state.
Yeah, I get it. But I'm thinking that as Mr. Donnellan has said, I mean, this isn't preventing us from approving the budget. But I would like someone with authority to say that if they really think this should be personal versus personnel, and I get if it's just a problem and everyone knows what it's really supposed to mean, I would prefer that Gulf Manor be the one that kind of stands up and says, fix the damn template, you know.
Okay. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
All right, moving along then. Is there any other questions regarding anything that I've discussed yet? All right, we will move along to the June financial packet. For the month of June, fiscal year 20, The village had an adjusted bank balance of $2.4 million. Of this amount, 2.2 rests in what we term as the village's primary bank balance, and the remaining approximately $200,000 rests in the village's mayor's court and police law enforcement trusts. I would always like reiterating at this point that it's important to note that although the village has approximately $2.2 million in its primary account, the vast majority of this sum is restricted and can only be spent in specific dedicated purposes such as road, street, and sidewalk maintenance. So as of June 30th, fiscal year 20, the village had 10 outstanding payments in the amount of $8,561. As of June 30th, fiscal year 20, the village had 78 payments clear in the amount of $192,253. Of this amount, $113,000 was allocated for employee compensation and benefits. This includes insurance and retirement. The next largest payment was made on the village's behalf was to Rumpke for solid waste and recycling services in the amount of $18,000, followed by payments to US Bank for vehicle expenses in the amount of $7,700. For June fiscal year 20, the village had 37 cleared receipts in the amount of $187,000. The largest source of revenue during this period was from RETA in the amount of approximately $70,000, followed by the Department of Justice. We received an amount from them in the amount of $46,000, and from Greater Cincinnati Waterworks in the amount of $16,000. Changing gears to the general fund specific, the village generated $71,000 in income tax receipts for the month of June, fiscal year 20. This amount, and this, I think this is really good news, this amount was 15% more than what the village generated over the same period last year. This figure also exceeds the updated revenue projections provided to us by RETA in the amount of $21,000. As discussed in previous monthly financial reviews, RETA forecasted a 20% reduction in income tax receipts for the months of March through June of fiscal year 20 due to the economic impact of COVID-19 on the local economy. The increase in income tax receipts for June, I believe, is a reason for optimism that the negative economic impact resulting from COVID-19 may not be as impactful as predicted. We will continue to monitor this revenue source extremely closely. But based on RETA forecasts that we received, they forecasted that the village should expect to receive approximately $49,000 for the month of June. And again, we generated $71,000. So that's great news, great news. I'm not sure it means that we should expect that same level through the rest of the year, but for June, I think that's positive news.
For clarification, what's in, actually Mr. Knapp might know this as well. When the property taxes, what's the cycle that we get property taxes? Does that steer any?
We get property taxes twice a year.
All right.
The first payment is the end of April, early May, and the second round of property taxes is in late August, early September.
All right, so these numbers aren't affected by that. You'd see that.
We would see it, yes.
Right.
Andy, will the delay in the due date of Hamilton County property taxes affect that date?
They haven't suggested that it will.
Okay.
I think we were told to be more concerned with was the delay in income tax filing. But again, we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it yet. What Hamilton County Auditor has notified us was in order for forecasting and efficient and responsible budgeting, assume between a 5 and 10% reduction in second half property tax receipts, which is, we amended the budget earlier this year based on that recommendation to reflect that.
But we've not received any communication from the county that the day that the village receives the payout is going to be delayed at all. Okay.
None.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Lanzer. Before we, I'm presuming we need a motion to accept the report.
Well, there's one final point I want to bring up if I can, just because the resident earlier had a concern about village expenses. So if I could, I just want to say that in regards to expenses for the month of June, we witnessed a continued trend of reduced spending when compared to that from last year. In June fiscal year 20, the village spent $136,000 for June of this year. This is nearly $36,000 less than what the village spent in June fiscal year 19. I think there's several causes of this, reasons for this trend, including the postponement and cancellation of several scheduled village projects and purchases, a reduction in employee overtime, as well as the implementation of strict expense controls by village administration. Again, the village administration, along with each department head, will continue to monitor spending closely. End of report.
Thank you, Mr. Lanzer. Could we have a roll call and poll for quorum, please?
Do we want to accept the June financial report this evening prior to that?
Motion to accept the June financial report.
Second.
And Terry, do we need a roll call vote for that?
Just all in favor, aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I think what the mayor was trying to confirm is that we do have 6 council members still here for the aye vote.
Yeah, so I would prefer protocol-wise that we do that before. I apologize as well. I think that I'm experiencing some technical difficulties where, because I can hear Andy, we're in the same building, and I can hear him speaking before I hear him on the screen, and then my sound will get all garbled, and then it's like, well, who's talking? And it gets
I
really
apologize. I didn't want to I didn't hear anyone. I didn't hear you. So.
Why don't we do the roll call and then just reaffirm the voice vote on the motion to accept?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Betcher,
Here.
Ms. Cheney,
Here.
Mr. Knipp,
Here.
Mr. Priedenoff,
Present.
Ms. Snyder,
Here.
Mr. Van Haar.
President.
All members are present.
Very good. Let's reaffirm the vote to approve the fiscal officer's report.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Without objection, I'll take that as unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Lanzer. And Mr. Donnellan, looks like we are planning on, that will be later. May we have your legislation and report, please?
Yes, thank you. We have 3 pieces of legislation this evening. Following up Mr. Lanzer's report, the first is ordinance 2020-7 to amend the appropriations. And can I have a motion to read that by title only?
Motion to read by title only.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Without objection, I take that as unanimous. Please proceed.
And this is an ordinance to amend appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the Village of Gulf Manor for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2020, to appropriate funds to be received for coronavirus relief. We need a motion, a second, and then a roll call vote.
I'll make a motion.
Second. All right. May we have a roll, please?
Mr. Betcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Knipp,
Yes.
Mr. Priednoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Now I need a motion to suspend the second and third readings of this ordinance and a roll call vote on that motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Betcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Knipp,
Yes.
Mr. Priednoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Thank you. The second piece of legislation is resolution number 2020-8, confirming the tax budget. Do we have a motion to read that by title only?
So motion?
Second.
That's a voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Without objection, I take that as unanimous.
This is resolution 2020-8, a resolution adopting a tax budget for 2021. This follows up again Mr. Lanzer's report to affirm our tax budget for purposes of the tax commission, the budget commission, so they can see that we are proposing a balanced budget. This does not appropriate funds this evening. That still has to come at the end of the year. This is just demonstrating to them that what we anticipate in receipts of revenues and what we anticipate in expenditures is within the budget balance. So we need a roll call vote on that unless there's further questions or discussion.
We have a roll?
Mr. Betcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Knipp,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Priednoff, I'm sorry,
No problem. Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes. Can I ask one question, even though we just voted on it? Just a question, sorry.
Go
Is
ahead.
there anything that could happen between now and December that would change this? That, based on some, like either a windfall or some other
Yeah.
thing? I'm just curious what happens. That's all. Sorry.
Absolutely. I think it depending what happens with COVID. If for some reason we enter into another lockdown, that would undoubtedly impact our revenue sources, and we are required. We should, as a best practice, have a balanced budget. So as revenues go down, appropriations should also go down, and that's not saying it's going to happen, but that's an example of something that would impact the budget.
Mr. Lanzer, I believe you also said earlier that up until December, we can change line items if there's a.
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct. That's correct. So we're going to pass an appropriations budget. Since I've been here, we've typically done it in December. I believe it's early December.
Correct. It's usually the last council meeting of November.
Okay. So yes. For purposes, what the county auditor wants to see by the end of the month is forecasted revenues and expenses, particularly in the general fund, that are balanced.
Okay, thank you.
The last piece of legislation we have is resolution 2020-9. The background of this is by our ordinance structure, you can carry over 80 hours of vacation that you've accrued from one calendar year to another. You use it or lose it. We don't want to force our police personnel particularly to start accelerating days off because they're afraid of losing it when they've done so much for us during this frontline disaster with COVID. So like we did a couple years ago, what we did was for this calendar year, we raised that limit to 120 hours that they can carry over. So we're not forcing them to take time off. So do we have a motion to read this by title only?
So motion.
motioned.
And
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Take that as
And
unanimous.
This is resolution number 2020-9, a resolution authorizing a one-time carryover and accrued vacation for calendar year 2020. And I need a motion to approve. A second question,
to
and a
approve.
roll call vote.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Batcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Knapp,
Yes.
Mr. Friedenoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Hart.
Yes.
And then two last points. One, I'm going to ask at the conclusion of the meeting for a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss matters of personnel compensation. The other is just a reminder, particularly for those who might have logged on, that tomorrow evening we have our public hearing on the referendum petition relative to ordinance 2020-10, which is the non-discrimination ordinance. That will actually begin at 6 p.m. We're required by our charter to have a public hearing. Council as a whole will conduct that public hearing. Process-wise, there'll be comments that will be made. Council will hear those comments. Council then can make a recommendation to itself, and then any legislative action would occur immediately after the public hearing at a special meeting of council, which we've called. The legislative action could be either referring it to the ballot for the general election in November or repealing the ordinance itself. So those action items will be presented to council tomorrow evening for them to set that on the agenda. Again, public hearing itself starts at 6 p.m. We anticipated originally this would all be live with some changes. It's going to be both live, so you can attend in person in the tent in the park, or you can attend by Zoom call-in with the information being posted on the web page. For those who intend to attend live, I think the notice says you must wear a mask the whole time. We expect you to appropriately socially distance. We can't do a temperature check because of outdoor temperatures, but we will ask you to answer a few quick questions, particularly regarding temperature or others in your household you may be treated for COVID, or if you have any type of respiratory distress. And if you answer positive to any of those, we will ask that you not attend the public hearing in the tent. You can log on. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, you said the process is that we hear the comments, then we make a reference to ourselves or something. I was trying to figure out what that exactly meant.
Council has to take action on what the recommendation. There could be no recommendation. There could be a recommendation to repeal. There could be a recommendation to refer it to the November ballot. Council then has to take legislative action in a special hearing or a special meeting of council. If this had been referred to, say, executive committee, and 3 members of executive committee were conducting the meeting, they would make the recommendation. It would not be the entire council, but only 3 members of executive committee. Council made the decision to sit as the council in a whole so that everybody can be present and hear the comments and then make the recommendation collectively for the legislative action.
So to make that recommendation, we have discussion after we hear it.
Yes.
To then decide what our recommendation is going to be, and then we go to council. That's how it works.
Correct.
Our recommendation is only the 2 options.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, as a matter of process, I'm going to move everyone over to the breakout room.
Do you need a motion first?
What? Yeah,
Hang on a second. Let me tell you the process. Hold on. So once I move you over to the breakout room, everybody will come back up. It might be a good time to take a bio break if you need to. Then once we're finished, I will need to do the same process and then restart the video for the meeting, just so you have an idea of timing.
Mr. Donellan had suggested that maybe we do this at the end of the meeting. Do we have any preference? I guess what we still have to do, we'd need to return and do the police report, fire district report, and I'll ask for if there's any education report and any other reports, and then we'll have announcements and then go, or do you guys want to do that first before going into, I mean, I'm thinking for anyone watching, it might be easier for us to get all the reports out of the way before we go into executive session, but it's, I'm looking for what you guys want to do.
I think that's logical to do, Mayor. However, do we need to come back after the executive session?
To shut down the meeting, yeah, but
Right. So that's a whole process of restarting the recording and everything. Just making you aware.
I think we just take care of the reports so that people can hear what they want to hear, and then they can go home and we can finish up, and then we'll just come back to shut down.
anybody object to that idea? All right, Chief Campbell, I'll ask for your report.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a few things. I have the mayor's court report for the month of June, and then a few other small items. So first, for the mayor's court report for the month of June, mayor's court sent $2,779 to the village. We directed $468 to the state, $15 to the other line, for a total of $3,262. That is the end of the mayor's court report.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Without objection, I'll take that as unanimous. Thank you, Chief Campbell. Any other things to report, Chief?
Yes. Secondly, I wanted to report, I received 2 letters in the last couple of weeks from 2 different local police departments thanking us for their assistance in preparations for some of the civil unrest that occurred, particularly recognizing Lieutenant Forrest for donating his time and expertise and equipment to support other agencies. Another item I'd like to mention is I want to thank Mr. John Bloom, who used to live in Gulf Manor. He donated $100 to the police department and thanks for the work that's been done in the last several months. So thank you, Mr. Bloom. And finally, I want to report that one of our officers, Officer Recker, is a new father to a healthy baby boy.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and that is all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Do we have a fire district report?
Can I jump in here real quick? This is just a quick personal thing. Chief, this is my own observations, but I feel like I've seen a slowdown of traffic in our village. And I've also seen myself more presence, just the vehicles and the police. I'm assuming they're related, but it's only a judgment, but I appreciate it. And I wanted to call you out my observance. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
I'd like to also agree with Mr. Van Harn's remarks and certainly express my appreciation as well. Noticed a significant slowdown on Vera, especially with the installation of those speed humps. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have a fire district report?
Actually, not this evening. We will have one for the next council meeting.
Very good. Presuming that there is no executive or finance reports, and is there a community engagement report? No. All right. Education report?
No.
Okay. So are there any announcements? I see here notation about the public hearing tomorrow, which we've spoken to at 6 p.m. The details about location and how to sign on Zoom-wise are on the website. And that will be immediately followed by a council meeting. And our next council meeting is then scheduled presently for August 17th at 7 p.m. Are there any other announcements?
Just a short one. I want to jump in. It's sort of education related. I don't know if people know, but Father Paul from Nativity retired July 1. And there's going to be some celebration eventually for that. And Father Eric Rausch, a graduate of Miami U, read his story, sounds like a great guy. I've not met him yet, is now the leading priest at Nativity for both, obviously, the parish and the school. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Van Harn. Anything else?
We should include Steve on the executive committee or on the executive session, since he's on the executive committee, because he needs to start hearing.
Okay. All right. I will, sorry, we're getting feedback here because we had two. Mr. Hirth came in to advise me of something that I'd like to get your direction on, Terry, concerning the motion we're about to make here to move into executive session. There's been a request to include one of our residents who's potentially going to be on or is on executive committee. I guess what I'm trying to say is we have a resident who's a resident member of our executive committee. Are they allowed to be in our executive session?
Council can invite folks to attend the executive session. The only caution that I would extend is we are under a mediation confidentiality agreement. And the more folks that we bring into this conversation, particularly at this stage, the more people may have to be signing confidentiality statements.
Okay. I'm going to ask if there's any objection given Mr. Donnellan's perspective that he shared for Mr. Steve Simile to be invited to the executive session this evening. Is there any objection? Having not heard
One quick question. Is there anybody on executive that's not here tonight then? Forgive me, it's been so long since I've connected with that committee. I'm trying to remember who's who.
I got you. I'm right with you on that. I'm the mayor.
This is everybody.
All right. So without hearing an objection, Mr. Simile, I would invite you to join our executive session this evening and direct Mr. Donnellan to have you sign whatever you need to sign in terms of confidentiality around that. All right. With that, just a word to anyone watching, we're going to go dark. And when we come back, we're just going to be asking for a motion to close the council meeting in general. So if you have someplace else to go.
Now's the time.
Right.
And we are taking a bio break. I need one.
All right. So we'll reconvene in 5 minutes in a breakout room for our executive session.
Okay, see you on the other side.
So do we need a motion to go into executive?
Yes,
Yes.
So motioned.
Motion for executive session for personnel compensation, and then we need a roll call vote.
So motioned.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Betcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Knipp, Mr. Prenoff,
Make it so.
That's me.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries, and we'll see you in 5 minutes.
Do we have to exit and then enter?
You get a little pop-up here.
There you go.